Welcome to this VMRay webcast titled, Not All Threat Intelligence is Created Equal, Maximize Your SOAR Performance with Accurate Threat Data. My name is Chris Martin, VP of Customer Success at VMRay, with over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity. Today's topic begins, of course, by discussing why security orchestration, automation, and response became important to today's Security Operations Center. The main challenge for SOCs around the world is getting to the relevant incidents within their organization in time to prevent critical damage to systems, data, or even their brand. In order to do this, the SOC analyst needs not only incident alerts from a diverse set of IT infrastructure, but also needs in-depth detail of those incidents to evaluate their criticality. But according to market research, the SOC is struggling to do exactly what it was created to do. Studies have shown that from the time of an infection until it is finally detected takes an average of 200 days. And it takes another 80 days on average until these detections can actually be resolved. This is not the fault of the SOC itself, but the mere magnitude of data swapping into the organization and the multitude of different systems with varying security maturity that are making this task almost impossible. Alert fatigue makes it hard to tell the difference from a real alert and a false alarm. The old car alarm situation where people become deaf to the real threat when being overwhelmed with the noise of false alarms. In addition, many existing security infrastructure within the organization do not detect sophisticated malware when they are built from ancient security technology. And then there's the very limited human resources within the SOC to tackle this sheer impossible task. Let's take a look at a typical workflow of a SOC analyst. After receiving an event and verifying this event apparently involved a file that a user installed or opened on their system. In this case, the analyst would submit this file to an analysis system. In our example, a malware sandbox. But this one event can include the same workflow using multiple analysis components within the SOC. It takes an average of 3 to 5 minutes to execute such an analysis, then another 10 minutes to correctly classify the sample as malware, grayware, etc. At this point, the analyst needs to make a decision whether a client system needs to be remediated or not. Another 1 to 10 minutes, and that doesn't include the actual remediation, then reporting analysis and executing your remediation tasks. So in total, one analysis can take 2 to 3 hours. And this task repeats itself using multiple technology and involving multiple internal teams. This is a real dilemma for the SOC with its limited resources. Along comes security orchestration, automation, and response, SOAR in short. SOAR was supposed to alleviate the strenuous pain of repeating manual investigations on not yet validated event data. Research confirms that the SOC is receiving an average of 12,000 alerts per day that the SOAR needs to weed through. How it does this is to receive event data from as many sources in the organization as possible. While receiving all this data, orchestrate analysis and detection of threats through multiple analysis systems with repeatable workflows. This allows the SOC to automate event analysis tasks as well as decision-making and remediation tasks. The SOAR is meant to provide a single pane of glass for correlation, triage, remediation, and documentation of events within the organization. Has this actually solved the SOC's problems? It's a step in the right direction, but unfortunately not the final solution. Still, too many false alarms need manual investigation by the analyst. This leads to a lack of trust for actually automating the remediation tasks, which defeats the purpose of the SOAR in the first place. In addition, most threat intel sources only detect known malware, so the SOC remains blind to events pertaining to unknown or targeted threats. Your SOAR is only as good as the data you feed it. Accelerate detection by enriching the quality of the security alerts you receive by validating them with a trusted source of behavioral malware analysis. Utilizing an automated malware analysis platform you can trust will enable the SOC to focus on the real alerts while muting the noise of the false alarms. VMRay provides best-of-breed behavior-based detection of unknown malware. No signature-based or machine learning technology can beat the accuracy of detecting actual malicious behavior. VMRay provides accurate verdicts for validating existing alerts, especially when it comes to unknown threats. Not only does VMRay provide accurate data, but also details needed for an in-depth investigation of the event. This helps the SOC filter out the garbage and reduce alert fatigue by prioritizing verdicts of such a trusted source of intelligence. In addition to building trust through detection accuracy, VMRay can also enhance the general threat intelligence infrastructure of any SOC by doing the heavy lifting of evaluating which artifacts are actually relevant to the event in question. In these examples, you can see that from the 183 artifacts, only 7 were relevant, or from the 538 artifacts, only 90 were relevant for detecting the actual threat. This can improve the accuracy of your entire security infrastructure, not just your SOAR. With this type of data, the SOC is empowered to create highly effective playbooks for automating detection and remediation tasks. I'm now going to hand over to our SE, Ben, who will walk you through a SOAR playbook using VMRay analysis capabilities. Ben, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Today we'll demonstrate how to leverage a SOAR and sandbox integration using an automated playbook from Splunk Phantom. VMRay recently updated our out-of-the-box integration with Phantom to include detonating URLs, pulling data from the child samples, and our updated analysis output, which includes the option to filter the relevant IOCs from the total artifacts. To demonstrate these added features, we will run a playbook which was built to analyze a URL alert from a web gateway. This playbook was designed to ingest an alert from a web gateway, which would then detonate that URL from VMRay. From there, it'll get the relevant information from that submission, including the sample ID, to then gather the report once that submission is completed. From there, it can take the relevant behaviors from that submission and any child submissions that are from that and place that information in a note within the investigation. After this, it'll take the relevant IOCs, which include the URLs and any hashes that are found to be malicious, and then add those to a block list and also a watch list. So let's see this in action. We're going to take a URL that we can then ingest into our Phantom playbook, where we can pretend this is a web gateway. So all we do is just ingest that URL, and we can go to that relevant event. So here we have the suspicious URL investigation from that web gateway. We can see any of the playbooks run and anything that's been started. While this is running, we can go into VMRay to see this in action. Right away from the dashboard, we can see that URL that was submitted using that integration. And then we can dive into that sample review. Here's doing a web analysis of that URL. In this case, since there will be a file that's downloaded, it will also include a child submission. We'll also analyze, it'll also dynamically analyze the file that is downloaded from this web analysis. Now that the submission is completed, we can see all the information from the different analyses that were completed. We can initially see that the URL was analyzed with the web analysis and also a reputation analysis. Below that, we can see the VMRay threat identifiers, which is how we would then score the different analyses that have taken place. In this case, we can see that that URL is going to download an executable, but also we see that there is a known malicious file that's being downloaded from this. Above that, we're able to see the actual child sample itself for that downloaded file, and this was submitted recursively. So we can go into this analysis and we can see all the information that we have about this. And this could be anything from the classifications and threat names, as well as all of the VMRay threat identifiers. And then we can also see the filtered IOCs. So of the over 160 total artifacts that we see from this particular analysis, we see 62 of these are what we would filter out and consider to be relevant IOCs for threat intelligence. Going back into the Phantom investigation, we can see all the information that was pulled out of this. For one, we can see the VMRay analysis results, which will include all of the threat identifiers, both for the URL that was submitted and any of the child samples that were found from this. So in addition to the threat identifiers found from the URL that was submitted, we can also see all of the threat identifiers found from the submitted executable that was downloaded from that URL. We can also see that during this process, after that submission was completed, the IOCs that were URLs were added to a block list, and there's also validation checks that are ongoing from here. We also added the hashes that were found from those analyses to add those to a watch list. We can then go into the notes to actually see what these were. So we can see that the URLs that were successfully blocked, we're also able to look into the hashes that were added to the watch list. So without us even having to lift a finger, this all occurred automatically. We're able to detonate a URL inside of VMRay, which then downloaded an executable for analysis. And we're able to analyze the executable automatically and provide the results within the initial investigation. And from there, using Phantom's automation, you're able to then block any of the malicious URLs and hashes without needing to add anything else to your own investigation. Below those investigations, we can see some additional information on the submission ID from VMRay, so we can easily get into that report directly from here. We're also able to see any of the artifacts that were added to these, and then all of the various validation checks that occurred. I'm now going to hand it back to Chris, who will conclude today's webcast.
Thanks, Ben. As you can see, VMRay can increase the capability of your SOAR to actually utilize the automation tasks it was made for. So filter out the garbage in your alert jungle by trusting the capabilities of the best dynamic behavior analysis solution in the industry. VMRay is a very open platform that can not only integrate with a large selection of SOAR solutions, but also with your email, EDR, threat intel platform, and more. Thank you very much for your time watching this webcast.